guys, and welcome to another video. Now, straight away, I'm going to halt you in your tracks, and now a lot of you guys will look at the thumbnail or look at the title of this video, straight away get in there in the comments and jump to conclusions straight down my neck like, what the f*** is going on? Where have you heard this from? jamsarny's a But I urge you to listen and also just calm down for 1 second, because all it is somewhat speculation. What this video is I'm going to go through a sort of live Q&A that took place last night. It was hosted, or it was brought to by the Red and White Army. They were giving the questions, and then there was KLD there, there was Speakman, there was Davison, and also Dave Jones as well. Now, I don't have a full sort of script of what was going on, but I basically go through the tweets of what was going on. So I'm going to try and break it down. There is literally like 40 tweets of different questions that were asked and different answers, and I found some of them very interesting. Some of them I'll probably just sort of glaze over somewhat, or graze over should I say, and not really delve into too much, but there's some answers that I would like to give my own opinion, and of course, as usual, it's always very interesting to see what you guys think, so let me know in the comments down below what you think about some of these answers to some of these questions that are being put forward to our board, because there are some really interesting ones. Some of them have been a little bit controversial, as always, online. Some, or a section of Sunderland fans, will lose their shit over literally anything. Some I agree with, some I disagree with, but either way, we're going to jump straight into it. So straight away, KLD does come out and say, I've enjoyed every minute of it so far, the good times and the bad, especially the good times. Of course, there has been some dips and there's been some ups and downs during his time at Sunderland so far, so it's nice to hear that he has, and he is enjoying himself. So there's a lot of little tweets and sort of bits like this that I will allude to, and like I say, I'm not going to go into too much depth because there are some really sort of meaty ones that we will get into later in the video. There's like 42 tweets to get through, so here we go. Steve Davison says, the win at Wembley was a massive relief for him. I couldn't wait to rip up my League One budget. Now, of course, that's referring to, of course, just before the player final. Steve Davison, he will be having a look at what kind of money we'd have to work with, or the financial restraints we'd have to work with if we were to have another season in League One last season, if we didn't manage to beat Wycombe in the playoff final. And then, of course, he would have had the sort of carrot of the Championship financial regulations as well. So, of course, like he says, he would have been absolutely buzzing that he can throw his League One plans out the window, because we don't want to go down that route again. We didn't. We're looking to the future. We're now in the Championship, so that's really good to hear. Now, next up, Dave Jones simply says, thank God we're out of that shit league. That's which is great, straight to the point, and agreed. Do you know what I mean? The quality in that league is getting better and better and better, but some points in that league, there's certain aspects of League One that I just utterly despise, but that's for another video. Next up, KLD does say it's important to remember where the club has been in recent past. There are huge things to do before I consider it to be ready for the Premier League. Now, this was the first controversial statement, because some fans have got straight down the throat there and immediately saying there's absolutely no ambition of the club. Where's their ambition? Where's this, that and the other? Our expectations are like A, B and C. No, that is a very, very accurate statement by KLD. It's important to remember where the club has been in recent past. We have been closer to League One than we have been in the Premier League. 4 years in League One, however long it was. It was 5-6 years ago since we were in the Premier League. Yes, we had a decade in the Premier League, but the final handful of seasons of the Premier League were scraping by the skin of our teeth to remain in the Premier League. So the frailties of the club as an infrastructure and as the club itself, it wasn't Premier League standard, and it was just scraping and probably shouldn't have been there. And it was in a terrible state, the club. And of course, we dropped down to the Championship and again down to League One. We had 4 years there. So you've got people here responding to that comment saying, there's no ambition by KLD. We should be going for it this season. No, I don't think we should. I think a lot of people, as soon as we got promoted from League One, or the second that final whistle went at Wycombe, 9 out of 10 fans, or 99% of fans would have said, I will happily take a steady season in the Championship next season. Stabilise the club, even just staying up. Granted, I'm not going to celebrate, finishing in, 19th or 20th that we've won the league. Of course not. That isn't what I'm thinking. I'm not saying that that's where someone should be in the future, and that's where we're aspiring to be. But it's stepping stones. It took 4 seasons to get out of League One. We've got a highly young squad, with an average age of like 22, 23, with very little experience in the Championship. They're doing well with what they've got so far, and I think because we had such a strong start to the season and we've largely competed in every game, a lot of fans' expectations have changed from simply solidifying our place in the championship to winning the frigging thing, which it shouldn't be there. That isn't where the expectation should be. So I think that's a very, very realistic statement from KLD to ground some fans. We're going to lose games in this league. It's a very, very difficult league. Arguably the most competitive league on the planet is the Championship, and we haven't been terrible. Yes, in the last couple of games, probably the worst performances I've seen so far this season. Even against Huddersfield, in my eyes, I think they were just as bad as the game last time out, where of course we did get beat by Cardiff, but I think just because we did manage to get those couple of goals against Huddersfield, it did sort of paper over the cracks a little bit. But we've been very poor over the last couple of games. But I'm expecting bad runs. I'm expecting that, But to sit where we are, sort of mid-table, it isn't the end of the world. And for KLD to say that we need to remember our past and this isn't Premier League ready, it's accurate. So how people have lost the shit over that is absolutely unknown. I think all we have got, realistically, is a stadium and an academy, or the quality of the academy, should I say, not the actual standard of maybe the quality in the academy in terms of players, but the quality of the academy itself as a structure and the stadium. Those are maybe Premier League standard. Everything else needs foundation, needs building. That's what KLD is saying. We don't have a Premier League squad. We don't have a top 6 Championship squad. Maybe if you want to really push it, and really scrape it, then maybe, but I don't think we're ready for that. But everything else is not of a Premier League standard, and that is what KLD is trying to implement. He's trying to implement things that will eventually be ready for a Premier League standard, and that doesn't happen overnight, and some people need to realise that. So I absolutely agree with that statement. So that was one of the big chunky ones that I thought I'd just get my opinion on, and I completely agree with KLD. Next up, Dave Jones says that this football is, the football club is chalk and cheese from what it was 2 years ago. Again, I agree. We have a plan in place. It isn't just throwing money at it. Well, it's like a couple of years ago. There was no money getting thrown at it, was there? But it was scraping by, and there seemingly wasn't a plan, and we were getting run by the wrong people. 100%. So I agree with that. It says it's from Dave Jones there. He also says, in every area, there is professionalism that just wasn't before. So Dave Jones there is saying, obviously, with Stewart Donald, Charlie Methvin, when those lads were in, when those guys were in, those parasites were in, it was getting run like a Sunday League club, and this isn't a Sunday League club by any stretch of the imagination. At the time, it was a League One club, and a club that it must be very difficult to own and to manage in itself because of its stature and in League One, and it was getting run like a Sunday League club by them, so I completely agree with that as well. KLD, he was asked what is his best decision that he's made since being at Sunderland. Now, he said appointing Alex Neil. That was his best decision. Now, some people said they feel a bit harsh on Tony Mowbray in saying that, but you have to agree. Again, he's been blunt, he's been straight. People I've seen some comments as well saying, he's young, you don't know what the hell he's on about. He's got like a master's in sporting and football business and stuff like that, and plus he's been in a rich family, not just rich, but rich in heritage and knowledge of the game, and he's been around it since he was a kid with Marseille and the like. He's not just some kid. Do you know what I mean? Some people are treating him like he's just some petulant child with a bit of money. He's not. He knows what he's doing. He knows a hell of a lot more than us. That's for sure, or at least for me. So anyway, appointing Alex Neil was his best decision, he says. And again, you have to agree, straight to the point. Yeah, it might be a bit harsh on Tony Mowbray or some other managers, what have you, but Alex Neil, he dragged us out of League One. And I'll comfortably say that. Yeah, I'm pissed off in the way they left, but he did bring us out of League One, and he was excellent there. Has to be said. Speakman also says, strategically, we're trying to build the squad over 3 or 4 transfer windows. We're trying to build year on year. That's why we've got so many young players and a few old players. We're trying to maintain that balance. Again, I like that. As I mentioned earlier, or he alluded to earlier, our average age in the squad is like 22, 23, which is mental. We've got a plethora of players at the minute, a foundation of players that have a ton of potential, and just a tiny bit of experience sprinkled in there. So that foundation is there because those youngsters, if they are to stay with the club, they will grow, you would like to think. They will get better, they will improve, and then with a constant little sprinkling of experience, that can get better and better because then the youngsters will continue to grow and they will become the experienced players. Do you know what I mean? So it is a work in progress. We're far from it right now. It isn't Premier League quality, as KLD mentioned right now. But I do like this plan. I like this plan. KLD says that the squad value is higher than it was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, it was higher than 12 months ago. Hopefully, it's just repeated, I think. Squad value is higher than it was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, it was higher than 12 months ago. Oh, sorry, yeah, I misread that. And hopefully even higher in 6 months' time. So yeah, that's the thing. With a lot of the players that we had previously or previous, we would bring in players, sometimes we would shell out a bit of cash for them, and they would just drastically lose value. Then we'd ship them on for less money, and we'd lose money. And now we're getting players, we're bringing players in, again, be it youth or potential, and because they're playing well and they've been nurtured correctly, the value is going to increase on the head. And it's a business, it's football, and some people are already at that point losing the shit. At that point, people are thinking, oh no, that means Ross Stewart's going, or some of our higher assets are going. But we'll move on anyway, because we will come to the sort of the big point that people have sort of chewed on and gone a bit mad at. But anyway, Kelly does go on to say, categorically, we only recruit if there is a strong willingness to come to Sunderland and move to the area. We've stopped signing players who you have to overpay and convince to come here. I love that and absolutely agree with that. And that also was a dig at the likes of Will Grigg. You know what I mean? We paid way over the odds for a player who didn't want to be there. I kind of understand the concept. You know, Will Grigg, he had goals behind him. He's a proven goal scorer, but he didn't really want to come. And if you have to really convince someone to want to come to your club and overpay the odds, why would you want them at the club? And that is the same sort of way and process we worked years ago, like the likes of Ellis Short. The amount of players that we brought in threw money at the wall. I mean, a shit ton of money at the wall, and they clearly didn't want to be there. Do you know what I mean? We don't want to go back into that pattern. And you see people online saying, you know, say with the likes of Ross Stewart, or when Alex Neil was manager, like, why didn't you pay over the odds? Why didn't you throw money at him? Like, no, I'm sorry. Even with Ross Stewart, and people will argue, no, you should pay anything Ross Stewart wants. Anything Ross Stewart wants. No, it needs to be the other way around. We need to pay what we deem to be fair, and I believe that KLD will be a fair man. He will give the highest, or what he deems to be a fair and accurate amount to offer Ross Stewart. Now, if Ross Stewart says, I want more, or I'm going elsewhere, then firstly, you know, I understand, because he might have Premier League offers, which it has been alluded to, which we'll get to, or Premier League scout, should I say, has been looked at by elsewhere. If his mind is elsewhere, or he wants to go, you know, I understand that if a Premier League club was coming for someone like Ross Stewart, go for it, son. 100% understand that. He's in his prime. It's not like the others where they're like 2021, where they can grow and then they get a bigger offer in a few years. So he might not want to wait until they improve a bit more. He's in his prime. He's 26 years of age, Ross Stewart. So if a Premier League club was to come for him, if that was the case, I'd understand him leaving. But at the same time, take away the Premier League club. If he just said, no, I want more money, then no, you shouldn't have to be convinced to stay here. We want you to want to be here. Do you know what I mean? And then if he's saying, oh, well, if I don't get that, then I'm going here. Do you know what I mean? We want players to want to be here. Of course, that doesn't mean we can lowball them all the time and just accept shit money. I don't think that would be the case. I think they would be fair. They would offer the maximum they can on what they believe to be fair for that player. I only want players that want to be at Sunderland Football Club. Because, you know, like I say, people say, oh, why didn't you throw this at Alex Neil? Why didn't you throw this at Ross Stewart now? You know, we can find another one. You know, we can find. I'll be gutted if Ross Stewart was to leave. I'll be gutted. I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be gutted. Of course I would. I would be. And no doubt fans will be screaming and shouting, saying, why didn't you pay him this? Why didn't you pay him that? But we'll find another. There's always other players out there. And in the position we're in now, we've only just come up to the Championship, as I say, and we need to remember, you know, there are a lot higher options and better options than us. Some people think Sunderland are a Premier League club. There's no better than us. They're on miles better than us at the minute. There is a lot of clubs at a higher standard, higher pay, and with higher potential to maybe go to the Premier League or be in the Premier League and play better football, and it's for their livelihood as well. There's a lot that goes into it. You know, Sunderland isn't the be-all and end-all for other players. As Sunderland fans, it is for us. For players, it isn't, unfortunately. So I would understand if Ross Stewart was to leave, but I also understand this concept of we only want players who want to be here. I've probably rambled on far too much, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to get across there. Kildy says, look at Derby County. They were in the player final, 90 minutes away from the Premier League, and 18 months later they're in administration, and that's a risk that none of us are willing to take. Exactly, so why would we want to piss money up the wall for players who wouldn't want to be there, or just throw money at things for the sake of it? Because at the end of the day, that's going to mount, that money's going to mount. If we start throwing X amount of money at someone like Ross Stewart, or overpaid, of course I want Ross Stewart to stay, by the way, and pay as much as we are okay to pay him, you know, given the maximum that we're okay to pay him, absolutely 100%. But if we start to continue a trend of we'll pay you loads because we really want you right now, then other players who maybe aren't on that wage will start knocking on the door. And then that wage bill is going to build and build and build. I'm going to be exactly where we were, in the shit, collecting debt for the fun of it. And that isn't what we want to be. You know, we don't want to be a Derby County just to appease some people. Do you know what I mean? But of course, we still want to remain competitive, and I think you can do. We can see we're running that model now where we are competitive. But KLD also says that Bayern Munich and German clubs in general are an inspiration in terms of how they're ran. And Dave Jones also says he claims that Brentford are his inspiration and the moneyball method of running a football club because they made a profit. No one makes a profit. It's very, very rare for someone to make a profit or a team to make a profit in the Championship, get promoted and still make a profit. That's what they do. They run off their academy, some players that they did bring in. They had such a star season. They brought them in on a sort of cheap young player, came in, made a name for themselves, and they're making a ton of profit. And that's what we're doing with some of the youth that we're bringing in. And, you know, again, it's horrible because I think naturally you'd like to think that all these youth players or young players that we've got in now, you'd like them to stay with us for years to come. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they will gain value, these young players. And if we are to make a profit, say we sign, say Alessi, for example. We bought him for, it was absolute pittance, what was it, like 250k, 300k, whatever it was, absolute pittance. He could have an incredible season. He looked fantastic before he was injured, by the way. But he could have an incredible season. Then someone comes in for him and offers 6-7 million because he was that good and at the standard of the Championship. You know, hands tied. You know, you'd say yes, you'd accept it. Do you know what I mean? And then you can bring someone else in for 300, 400k from the Premier League Academy, someone who looks just as good. And you do it again. Then we're starting to build a financial foundation for our club. It's a business and I understand that 100%. Particularly where we are now. If we did become a Premier League club and then we were just selling off our young players that are improving for the fun of it, then it's an issue. But now that would start to help us to progress at this stage where we are. I agree with that. Jones also says, now this is where some people did start to lose their mind about Ross Stewart, or at least they predicted or they presumed that this was about Ross Stewart. Jones says, I don't think it's time to sell star players just yet, but that time is fast approaching. You have to sell players to convince players to come to you. So Speakman also goes on to say, every club in the world sells players in some shape or form. Over the last years, Sunderland haven't had players of value to sell. So that's a big bit. So Dave Jones obviously saying that it's going to be fast approaching the time to sell players. So people have immediately jumped to conclusion, it's nearly January. It's not January just yet, but it is nearly January, and that's when Ross Stewart's going to go. Everyone jumped on that bandwagon immediately. That's Ross Stewart. It could mean that. I don't know. It could mean that. And again, I'll be very annoyed if it is. I'd be gutted if Ross Stewart goes, but I'd also understand it. You know, and I also understand the thought of, you know, like Speakman said, over the last years, some haven't had players of value to sell. As I mentioned before, we would lose out on players consistently because we're spending money in the wrong areas and they were poor signings. Whereas now, the signings we are getting, they're going to gain value continuously and we need to make money as a club as well. And then we can put that back into the club and into the playing squad. And I'm presuming that is what they're going to do. So straight away, people jumped on, and it could be. Does that mean that Ross Stewart, or they know something that we don't? You know, because I believe that there are scouts watching our players regularly at the moment because we do have a youthful squad who have loads of potential. And remember that a lot of our players, or younger players in particular, they're on quite long-term contracts, like 3-4 year contracts, aren't they? So other teams would have to pay out big to get them. So we're running it correctly. But yeah, a lot of people immediately thought Ross Stewart's out in January because of that comment. Is he? That remains to be seen. Hopefully he does sign a contract. I hope he does. I love Ross Stewart. He's a class player and he really would help us. We see how much we struggle without him and I'd love to see him remain at the club, but we'll have to see about that one. Speakman also says, we sat in Callum Doyle to show clubs that we're willing to start a 17, 18-year-old if they're good enough. That's brilliant. That's what I'd like to see as well, because then other clubs, higher clubs, will actually be willing to send out their their best youth players to us because they know they're going to get game time, they know they'll improve, and they will be given the time that the parent club want them to have. So that's a good as well. I do understand and appreciate that. Speakman says, me and Kirill have been speaking about this for a few weeks. None of us are happy with the home form. We have a young squad and we need to maintain a really good level of support for them. It's the first time a lot of them have come up against this scrutiny. Hopefully their quality shines through and the soul can become a fortress. Again, agreed with that, speaks for itself. We haven't been good enough at home. We've got a young squad. Let's try and back him, as much as it is very, very frustrating. And like I said there, we've been kind of plain sailing for a large part of the season. The odd loss here and there, that's fine. But when our performances start to drop as they have been, a lot of these players have never seen the stadium might turn a little bit, and they might start seeing it now, and that isn't going to help. But it's a natural turn from fans, but that is obviously a plea for support, which of course I'm personally happy to give the players, obviously. Speakman goes on to say, I have full belief that this squad can be performing at a top 10 level, and when you're in the top 10 you can be anywhere. So that just kind of flip the whole expectation thing. Does that mean he expects us to be in the top 10, or we're just wanting it because we have been performing at that level? Do you know what I mean? Like I said, beginning of the season, before it started, I would have been happy maybe 15th, 16th. I would have been happy with it. Not celebrate it, like I say, because that's just, but it's just a stepping stone for the club. I'd be happy with that. I'd be pleased with that. But because we have played at such a level, and probably even overperformed at times, and some of the football we have played has been incredible and beautiful to watch, now it probably has shifted a bit. We have been performing at a top 10 level. I agree with that. KLD goes, 18 months ago, most of these players being in League One was the highlight of their career. They wouldn't do nothing. They were content with where they were. Now in the dressing room, they all aspire to be in the Premier League, and if we don't do that, they'll want to do it elsewhere. Again, I agree with that, because the level of players we had in League One, and we were sort of the big fish in a little pond in League One, they saw that as the pinnacle of their career. Now that a lot of these players have moved on to the Championship, they've seen the other side and the potential going forward, their own expectations, their own aspirations have changed, because they might think, oh, I can actually prove here, you know, and particularly the start of the season, as I mentioned, they're going to want to continue and think, okay, I can actually do something in this league, and if this club doesn't push on, I'm going to push on with or without them, which it isn't a bad thing, because that just means that they have motivation and they have expectations of themselves. You know, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I do agree with that again. Let's have a look now. I think it would be better. I think it would be a better atmosphere. It'd be a better atmosphere if the away fans were moved back to the lower bowl, says Davison. Now, the atmosphere was a lot better. I'll have to agree. The atmosphere was a lot better, but sticking them up in the heavens and where they are now, it is dangerous. We're speaking about putting netting up as well, and it is a consistent thing. So it's trying to balance the safety and also the atmosphere, because the atmosphere at the stadium, as much as I love the place, it can be dead, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can agree with that. It can be absolutely dead. So yeah, I do agree with that to an extent. Yeah. Chaos on the two striker situation. He says we wanted two dynamic, strong strikers in Ross and Ellis. And a variety in that position was Leon, being Leon Diaku, and Ahmad. I'll never understand that's what they do with Diaku. I don't personally know what people see in Diaku. But either way, that's what they thought. They thought that Diallo would be able to fill in, or Diaku would be able to fill in. But that is what happened. KS also says, if our analysis says that a free agent number 9 won't be good enough and will knock another player out of the squad, then why would we do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would we do it? And it also says Tony has been right at the forefront of, right, how do we solve this problem of no strikers? So a lot of people say, why don't you go out and get a free agent? But why do you get a free agent if the quality wasn't there? You wouldn't just get it because bring a body to come in, and then it could end up affecting the harmony of the squad as well. Do you know what I mean? That's what I've said actually a few times in different videos. A lot of people just scream, just get a striker. Well, what's the point? You may as well get a Sunday League striker, and it's the same. What's the point? You know. So either way, we'll quickly move up a little bit. KLD, multiple offers were made to Alex Neil. A new contract was signed 10 days before it happened. We didn't go just to the limits. We went over the limits to retain him. We don't know what Stoke offered, but we offered one of the biggest wages in the Championship. And I could probably agree with that, but obviously Stoke, they did have money, and they've obviously thrown them a bit more. That's end of story, because something else, because I know a lot of people, and I've said this in a previous video, some people have said, oh no, but Alex Neil, it was the sort of the process and the planning of the club that we're doing at the moment, the sort of the system we've got in the club with the youth players, he didn't agree with it, blah, 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 blah. Well, if that was the case, then why did he sign a contract 10 days before? He was happy with the model of the club. That's the word I was looking for, model. You know, when he first comes to the club, he signed, it was kind of still coming out of the old model, and he even agreed then to sign. So why would he agree a new contract? Of course, it was at the same time, but it was for a much higher wage. We knew what the model was, and then Stoke come in. So that's all down on Alex Neil for me. That's all down to Alex Neil. It is all down to money, and I thoroughly believe him. I trust that we did offer an exceptional amount, but he just wouldn't keep Alex Neil there. Because as he said before KLD, Alex Neil was the best decision he made since being at the club. The best thing he'd done, his best decision, and he's gone. So that he would have been fuming with that. He would have been very upset that Alex Neil had gone. So he must have offered a lot for Alex Neil to stay because it was his best decision at the club. He also said that he interviewed Alex on 3 occasions and he was happy with the model. So I think I just said, what else could it be about then? What else could it be? KLD on Stewart, we are having ongoing conversations and we all hope he will stay at Sunderland. We have to plan for all eventualities and make sure we know what we're doing. But the plan A is to keep him. We would only consider selling someone if we had confidence we could replace him with someone better. So, yeah, so that's pretty much it with Ross Stewart. Of course, they want him to stay. Talks are ongoing. You would like to think that it would be wrapped up sooner rather than later. But maybe there are, with agents, particularly these days, they might be getting in Ross's ear saying, oh, that you've got this, sort of mid-table team in the Premier League that are looking at you, or someone lower down in the Premier League are having a look at you, just maybe hold off the contract at the minute. Because if that is the case, I would actually understand because he's going to the Premier League, and I would not be here screaming and shouting, calling Ross Stewart names under the sun because he goes to a Premier League team. That is someone who just has ambition. You know what I mean? Someone who has goals in life in general, who know what they want, and I would understand that. If it just went to another sort of sidestep Championship club, or say like a Wigan or something like that, then I'd be a bit more pissed off. Do you know what I mean? Then I would. But or if it was that sort of a team that we're fully expecting to win the Championship or be up there, even then I would somewhat understand. Because Sunderland aren't the force that some people think they are right now. They're not. We're up and coming. We've only just got scraped out of League One. We're not a sort of a top 2 Championship club, let alone a Premier League club that some fans still believe we are. We're not. But, there we go. That's not me digging at fans who are pissed off with this. Not at all. Absolutely the opposite. It isn't. It is just trying to remain somewhat realistic. But as a final message, anyway, he does say, thank you, KLD, he says, thank you to all of you for sticking with the club through League One. We couldn't have made it without you, or out of League One without your continued support. I hope we have more success further down the road. So that is everything. I've skipped a few tweets there, here and there, but I've just noticed I've been rambling on for nearly half an hour. So that is pretty much everything, and I've covered everything there. So of course, anything I mentioned in this, let me know in the comments down below. And please, guys, if you've enjoyed, hit the like button for me. I don't know whether you've made it to this point in the video, but if you have, smash the like button for me. It's massively appreciated. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already to become a fully fledged member of the Sassy Army. But for now, take care and stay jamming.